Now, in the course so far, you've seen the select statement used several times. Really haven't dove into it. I think that the select statement is probably one of the most important statements in the SQL language, because if you think about a database, the entire reason to have a database is to get data out of said database. So the select statement is very important, but it's also a very complex and versatile statement. And there's a lot that you can do with it as far as how you get data out of the database. And I've got the select syntax from the MySQL reference manual up, and you can see you might be a little intimidated right now saying, wow, this is like really crazy. There's a lot of stuff going on. And to be honest, there is a lot of things going on with the select statement, but we are going to take it step by step and break that down. And by the end of this course, you are going to be very, very comfortable with the select statement. It'll be second nature in using a select statement because it is very complex. There's a lot going on, a lot that you can do with it, but it is rather intuitive once you start to understand it. So you can see here, there's different clauses. We call them clauses. So we have the select clause, we have the from clause, we have the where clause, and so on. And let me break this down. I don't like the syntax on the screen because it is, I think it's just presenting too much data here about how the select syntax is. So I'm going to toggle over to SQL Workbench. And here I have a pretty rich select statement. And we can see here the first line on line 3 there where it says select, I am coming back and I'm telling it what I want to be returned in the result set. So here I'm asking it to return back the employee number and account, and I want alias that employee, that count as EMP_count. And I'm saying I want to select from the table employees, and that is known as the from clause. Now in that from clause on line 5 and 6 there, I can specify tables, and really cool features, I can do subqueries or subselects. So I can substitute a select statement for a table. So it's actually kind of a pretty cool thing that you can do. And we'll get into that going down the course. First, we have to get our feet wet with this select statement. Next, on line 7 there, I get into the where clause. And the where clause is very important because that is the conditions of how to select the data out of the database. So there on line 8, I'm saying employee number is greater than 1. So rather intuitive to see that. And we will get into some more complex examples of that. That's very simple. And then on line 9 is the group by clause. And I'm going to say to group by employee number. And that count function is known as an aggregate function. So it's going to group by employee number. And this is not the greatest example because everything's going to come back to 1 because employee number is a unique identifier, but I'm just doing this for illustrative examples. So going back to the group by, it's going to group by and then show you a count in the aggregate function of the count. Now, it's a little confusing, but the where clause and the having clause are a little bit different. The having is conditions for aggregate function. So I'm going to say, I want to see everything that has a count greater than 0. So this would return the world. And then on line 11 is the order by clause. And this is how I want the data ordered. So I can say, here I'm saying to sort by employee number. I could add in there ascending or descending and stuff like that. And then finally on line 12, this is a limit by clause. So if you think you have a table with millions of rows of data in it, you might get a set of like 100,000 rows being returned from it. You might want to break that into chunks. Web developers often use this. If you've ever seen where you click on next page, they're using the limit clause there. So if you have like an order history, if you go to like Amazon.com and look at your orders of your history, you're going to probably see, I buy a lot of stuff on Amazon, to be honest. So my order history is rather rich there. So there's lots of pages, and they're using that limit by clause to come back and say, I want to like flip to the next page of data. So it gives you like a paging functionality. And then there's other uses for this. You might not want 100,000 rows returned to whatever function that you're using. So that is a very important thing. So I know I'm going into a lot of information in this video on the select statement. It is a very robust statement in SQL, and we are going to go through and learn this step by step in the upcoming video. So I know that's a lot, but don't worry, we will take this and we will dissect this and do it step by step and get you up to speed on using the select clause in SQL.